Yeah. So good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Dr. Diapatil Vidyapit Center for Online Learning. I am your faculty for this course, that is OMB AIML 303 and OMBBA 305, that is Performing Analytics with Python. If you could remember, I have started this session in I think last one or two sessions. This topic, that is Unit 2, Python Advanced Concepts. So basically, in that two sessions, I have covered most part of this unit 2. So for example, we have understood about the images and what are the elements of images, as the images are very important when you are developing a game. So we have understood the basic elements which are associated with images. Then we have gone through with the fundamentals of data manipulation with Python, and I have practically demonstrated how to use pandas library and how to use the NumPy library and how to perform various tasks. So now in this session, what I have planned here, I am going to explain about RDBMS and UML. And if time remains, I will start with the third unit. So I hope you understood this. So let's go down directly to the RDBMS part. First, we'll learn about the fundamentals of RDBMS, what is RDBMS, and how we can work with RDBMS. So basically, when we talk about RDBMS, we are talking about the Relational Database Management System. Is a type of database management system. Say, for example, Oracle is a RDBMS. SQL Server is an RDBMS. Means what? A RDBMS is basically a relational database management system. So, in order to, uh, what you can say, can be called as a RDBMS, that database management system has to comply the 11 rules of CORD rules. So there are 11 CORD rules which are defined by Professor Cord, and if your database management system has to qualify as a RDBMS, then it should follow those 11 CORD rules. In the course of the time, I will discuss the 11 CORD rules, but not every database management system can be called as a RDBMS. So there are certain rules, certain protocols that I need to follow if my database, suppose that I have designed a database management system. Now I want to make it as a RDBMS. How I can make it as a RDBMS? I need to implement the 11 CORD rules which are defined by Professor Cord. If my database management system implements successfully those rules defined by Professor Cord, then my database is qualified as to be called as relational database management system. So the main point of relational database management system is that it organizes data in a structured manner in the tables or in the relations. Like I said, that the tables in database management system is referred as the relations. So everything or all data is stored in RDBMS in the form of tables or in the form of relations. And when I say a table consists of rows and columns, isn't it? And when you collect the data from multiple columns, then it becomes a record. For example, if I'm having a relation, if I'm having a table of student, and in that I'm having columns as student ID, student roll number, student name, student class, student marks, email ID. So these are the different columns of that student relation. When I say that student ID is 101, student name is say Sachin, student class is 12, student marks are say 70%, student address is so and so XYZ, and email ID is XYZ. So what it becomes? It becomes now a record. So basically a row of a table is called as a record. So the table consists of rows and columns, and the relationship between different tables are defined through keys. As we have seen, as we have learned in normalization, or if you are aware of normalization. So doing normalization, what we do, we divide the entire database into tables. We decompose the database into several tables. So as we cannot store our entire data, say for example, a school management system stores data in different tables. For example, student table is there, which will store the data of the students. Teachers table is there, which will store the information about the teachers. Fees table is there, which will store the information about the fees received and outstanding. Admin table is there, which stores the information about the administrative tasks or the administrative staff or the tasks. So there are different tables. So we cannot keep all our data in a single table, isn't it? If we try to store all the data in a single table, then it will lead to many problems. A problem can be data inconsistency, data duplication, insertion, deletion, and updation. Problems will be there if you store your entire data in a single table. And again, you see that whether you are running a small business or a medium-sized business or a big business enterprise, the data is always stored, or your database is always decomposed in several tables. Data is stored in multiple tables, and these multiple tables are related with each other with the help of primary key and foreign key. Again, I will demonstrate how to define primary key and foreign key when we learn about the chapter that is tables. That is, I think, chapter number 8 or 9. So in that, we will see how to create tables, how to define the constraints, that is primary key and foreign key, how to insert records, how to update, how to delete, practically in that chapter itself. But here we are understanding the concept of RDBMS. So basically, RDBMS is a relational database management system that organizes the data in structured tables or relations. A table consists of rows and columns, and these tables are associated. They are there is a relationship between these tables so that we can fetch the data from different tables as the different tables contains the data which is same. See, for example, student table will contain only the information about the student. Fees table will contain only about the information about the fees. Admin table will contain only the information about the admin task. But if I want to fetch the records of a particular student who has not paid the fees, or what fees that he has paid, what fees he is outstanding, so how I can get that information? Because student information is in student table and fees information in a fees table. So these are two different tables. But I want the information from both these tables. How it is possible? It is possible by creating the relationship between these two tables, that is student and fees. For example, if I say student ID as defined as a primary key in student table, I will define this same column, same attribute, that is student ID, as a foreign key in fees table. So now there is a commonness between these student table and fees table, that is student ID. So with the help of student ID, I can fetch the record of a student, of a particular student, about his fees received or outstanding. Or again, I can fetch the record of a student regarding his personal information or personal data. So in this way, the tables are related with each other, and we can fetch the records from multiple tables whenever we desire. So that is how the data is stored in different relations, and these different relations are they are being associated with each other. But that association that we have to create as a database administrator or a database designer, we need to see that which table needs to be connected, which table needs to have relationship. So as per our requirement, we can create the relationship among the tables so that we can fetch the records from multiple tables as the data is stored in multiple tables. So if you need the data from multiple tables, then by running a single query, we can fetch the records from multiple tables. So that is the main concept of RDBMS. And in Python, if you say you can interact with RDBMS, that is any RDBMS that you can use, which is supported by Python, using the various variables or using the various libraries and modules. So for example, in this session, I'm going to use the SQLite. SQLite is a RDBMS that I'm going to use here, and I'm going to show you how to connect to this SQLite database, how to create a database, how to create a table, and how to enter the records into that table of SQLite RDBMS. So now we are going to use the SQLite and SQL Alchemy being the popular choices. From that, I'm going to use the SQLite. So let's explore the RDBMS concept in Python with examples using SQLite. I hope all you are on the same page. Have you understood this concept of RDBMS? Guys, if you have any queries, please put your queries. Screen is not visible. Is it not visible? Okay, I will one more time, I will make it visible. Yeah. Now, is it now visible? Please confirm in the chat box. Is it visible, guys? Bryce, is my PPT is visible? Okay, thank you, Nagraj. So here, I'm going to use the SQLite. First, we will understand the concept. Then I'm going to practically demonstrate how to connect to the SQLite database, how to create database in that by using the SQLite RDBMS. So the first and foremost thing that you need to do is to import the SQLite 3 library. This SQLite 3 library contains the methods, contains the classes which are required to work with SQLite database. So by using the import statement, we are importing the SQLite 3 library into my Python code. So now once you import the SQLite 3, the next thing is to create a SQLite database. So if the database exists, it will simply open and it will be connected. If suppose that in my SQLite there is no database, so what this command will do, this command will create the database with the name example.db, and after that this command will let you connect to the example.db database. I hope you are understanding it. So if the database, that is example.db, so here I'm creating a database in a way. If this example.db does not exist in SQLite database, so this command will create the example.database in your current working environment, in your current working directory. If it is there, then it will not create it. Simply this command will connect your application to the example.db if you have previously created the example.db database. So in that case, this command will simply connect your application, that is your Python code, to the example.db. So how to write this? You can say connection is the object name. You can give any name here. But whenever you are giving a name to a variable, try to see that the variable name is relative to the task that you are performing, isn't it? So here I'm creating a connection. So I can give the name as say con, or I can say connection. That would be better, so that whenever I see this connection object, I remember that yes, what it contains the connection, connectivity. So whenever you are giving a name to a variable, try to see that the name is associated, the name is relevant to the task that I am doing here. So here I'm connecting to the database. So that's why here I'm giving a name as connection. So connection is equal to SQLite 3 dot connect. So this is the method name, that is connect. Connect is the method which is already defined in SQLite 3 library. I just need to call the method with its name, and if that method accepts any arguments, I need to pass it. So this connect method accepts one parameter, that is the name of the database, so that I need to provide in double quotes. So here I am doing the same thing here. So connection is my object name is equal to SQLite 3 dot connect. In the bracket, I am specifying the database that I want to connect to. If this database exists, it will be opened and connection will be established. If the example.db does not exist, then this command will first create the example.db database, and after that a connection is established with the help of this statement, that is connection is equal to SQLite 3 dot connect. In the bracket, specify in a double quotes name of the database. So this statement will connect your application to the database, and that connectivity is being stored in a connection object. So connectivity is being stored in a connection object now. After that, I need to create a cursor object to execute the SQL commands. So what are the SQL commands that I want to execute here? It can be inserting a record. It can be a command for editing, that is updating the records, or it can be a command for deleting the records. But for that, you need to create a cursor object so that you can execute the SQL command, that is structured query language commands. And all RDBMS understands the language of SQL query, that is structured query language, which is very popular language, which is used with almost all RDBMS in order to query the database and to extract, to modify, or to delete the records. So for all those things, the SQL will provide you these statements. So first thing is that I need to create a connection with the help of the connect method of the SQLite 3 library. Once connection has been established, the second thing is that I need to create the cursor object on my connection object. So as you can see in the screen, cursor is equal to, again you can give any name here, but again I would suggest you should give a relative name. So cursor is equal to connection. What is connection? Connection is my object. In the previous statement, I have created the connection. So the connection to the database, that is example.db, is being stored in a connection object. So on that connection object, I need to create a cursor object. How I can create a cursor object? By just calling the cursor method. Like to connect to the database, we have called the connect method. In the same way, to create a cursor object, we need to call the cursor method on the connection object. It's very simple one. So cursor is equal to connection dot cursor. So this will create a cursor, and this cursor is placed into the database. Now I can create a database. I can insert the records into the database, I can modify, I can update the records in the database, or even I can delete the records from the database. So the first thing first, that I don't have a table in my database. So first I need to create a table in my example.db database. So how I can do that? With the help of the cursor object and with the help of the SQL statement and the execute method, I can create the tables here. So as you can see that cursor.execute, execute is the method name. Whatever command that you want to execute, you need to call the execute method here on the cursor object. So cursor.execute, in the triple quote or double quote, you can write create table if not exist. Means what? If the table does not exist, create one. So create table is the statement that I'm writing here, SQL query. Create table if not exist is a query, and the table name is employees. You can give here any name, and in the bracket we have to specify the column names, what columns that you want in your table, by specifying its data type and its name. So for specifying the attribute name and its data type. So for example, ID is the attribute name. The type of the ID is integer. Now here I'm, as you can see, I'm defining the ID as a primary key. So here I have defined ID column with the data type as integer, with the constant as primary key, comma, I want to create one more column, that is with the name, attribute name is name, and its type is text, so that I can enter the text in the name column. Then again I want to create one more column, that is the age, and its type should be integer. So once this command executes successfully, a table called as employees is created in your example.db database, having ID as integer, name as text, and age as integer. So here I have created a table with three attributes, three columns, that is ID, name, and age, if everything goes smoothly. Now, once the table is been created, the table is empty, I need to insert the records into the table. How I can do that? Again, by using the cursor object and the execute method. And in that execute method, I need to write the SQL query. You can write insert query, you can write update query, or even you can write the delete query as well. Depends on what you want with that table. So here initially I want to insert the records into the table. So that's why here I am writing the insert query into the execute method, that is cursor.execute. Insert into is the query name. Insert into, you need to specify the table name, specify the column that you want to, for which column that you want to enter the data. If you want to enter the data for all the columns, say for example, in this employees table, I am having three columns: name, age, and I'm having ID. So here I want to enter the values for name and age, isn't it? So for the primary column, that is primary key, that is ID, that will be automatically added. I don't need to enter. So here I want to enter the data for name and age. So that's why I have specifically, I'm giving the column names. But suppose that you want to enter the data for all columns. So in that case, you don't need to specify the column names here. You can just write the query as insert into employees and say values directly. Okay, so it depends. Suppose that there are 8 columns in your table and you want to insert the data only for 6 columns. So whatever columns that you want to insert a data, you need to specify the column names here by separating the comma. So for example, student ID, comma, student roll number, comma, student name, comma, student age, comma, student phone number, comma. So if you want to specifically insert the data for specific columns only, then you need to specify the column names in the angled bracket. But on the contrary, if you want to enter the data on all the columns, then here I don't need to specify the column names. It is not mandatory. So the command to insert the record into a table is insert into insert into table name. In the bracket, specify the column names if you want to specifically insert a data only for specific columns. After that, values, what values that you want to insert, that you have to specify by writing the values. Say, for example, for name, I want to insert Alice, and for age, I want to insert as 30. So what is this question mark? The question marks are called as the placeholders. So the first question mark will hold the value that is Alice, and second question mark will hold the value that is age 30. So this will insert a record into a table employees with the name as Alice and age as 30. Again, I want to insert one more record. Again, you can write the same query, but here with different values. That is a cursor.execute in the bracket, double quote, insert into table name, specify the column names if you want to, values, what values that you want to insert, that is Bob and 25. So now the second record will get inserted once this statement will get executed. So after doing all these things, after inserting the records into a database, if you want these records to be stored permanently, then you need to call the method that is commit on the connection object. So until and unless the commit method is called on the cursor object, the changes that you have made to the tables, they are not permanent. As soon as you close the connection, the changes that you have made will be vanished if you do not call the commit method on the connection object. So if you want the changes that you have made, whatever changes that you have made, whether you have inserted the records, updated the records, or deleted the records from the table, if you want all those changes to be permanent, then it is mandatory that you need to call the commit method on the connection object. So now here I'm calling the commit method on the connection object so that all my changes will be stored permanently and I am closing the connection. So when you call the connection.commit, all the changes that you have made will be permanent and the connection is closed. So as soon as you finished working with the tables, you need to close the connection by calling this connection.commit. Otherwise, if you make that connection open, then there would be many chances, there would be many problems. It would lead to data deletion, it would lead to the data get lost, and again there are some limitations, the number of connections that you can open at a time by the operating system. So we need to consider all those things, and it is always recommended that once you done with your table, once you done with your database, then you should close the connection object by calling the connection.commit, isn't it? So that all the resources that you have used here will be given back to the environment, that is the RDBMS environment. So now we have inserted the records into the database. Now I want to see the records from the tables. I want to fetch the records from the tables. So how to fetch or how to write the command for fetching the records? Again, here I need to use the cursor object dot execute is the method, and in that execute method I am writing the select query. So if you want to insert a record into the database, you need to write the insert query, as you can see here, insert into. If you want to extract the records from the database or from the tables, then you need to write the select query. So here I'm writing in a double quote, select is the command name. Select star from employees. Star means what? Select all the records from the employees table. So after executing this command successfully, what this cursor will do? The cursor will have all the rows extracted from the employees table. So now from that cursor, I want to fetch the records into rows. So now the cursor is having all the records from the table employees, but I need to show it. How to do that? Again, you have to call the cursor dot fetch all. So fetch all will actually fetch the records from the cursor. So this command has simply executed. What they have executed? They have executed the select query. Means what? All the records from this employee table are been executed. Now the records are in the cursor. So to fetch the records from the cursor, you need to call the fetch all method on the cursor. So cursor dot fetch all will actually give you all the rows, all the records that we have executed with the help of cursor dot execute. So now I want to display the records in the rows variable. So now the rows variable is having a table of records. I want to display it. How I can display it? By again defining a for loop, that is for row in rows. You can give here any name, any variable for row. Where is the data? That is in rows. So for row in rows, for is a keyword, in is also a keyword, row is the name of the variable, and rows are the rows are the variable name in which I have fetched the records. So now I can print one record at a time with the help of this print method. Print row will print one row at a time, and this for loop will repeat it until all the rows are being fetched and they are being displayed onto your screen. Once you're done with this for loop, I need to close it connection, that is connection dot close. So here I need to close the connection by calling the connection dot close. So the connection dot close will close the connection. At connection dot commit will calling the close method. So this will close my connection object. So now let's go on to the practical aspect of this example of RDBMS. Yeah. Please let me know whether you are accessing, whether you are seeing the collab screen or not in the chat box. Sir, this class is also for course code OMBBA. Yeah, OMBBA 305. It is common, guys. Like I said that initially, I have said that this lecture, or we can say this subject, that is performing analytics with Python, is common for OMBBA 303. Sorry, OMB AIML 303 and OMBBA 305. Am I correct, guys? If I am wrong, please let me correct. This is common course for both the specializations, that is for business analytics and for, I think, for AIML. So it is visible. Solomon saying it is visible. Bryce is also saying visible. Afrin is also saying visible. So now let's do it practically. So here, as you can see here, first I need to import the SQLite 3. So import SQLite 3. After that, establish the connection with the help of the connect method. If the database does not exist, still it is going to create a database with the name that you have specified in the bracket. So here I'm saying con is equal to SQLite 3 dot connect, in the bracket I'm saying my database.db. So if my database.db presents exist in this environment in my current working directory, it will be opened and the connection will be established with this command, that is SQLite3.connect with my database.db, else my database.db will be created and a connection will be established with this help of this command or with this statement as well. After once you have connected to the database, the next thing is to create the cursor object. Why? The cursor object is used to execute the SQL commands. It could be insert command, it could be select command, it could be update command. Whatever command that you want to execute, that would be possible with the help of the execute method of the cursor. So here I am creating the object of cursor with the help of the cursor method on the connection object, because the cursor method is stored, is given by the Python in the connection object. So that's why I need to call the cursor method on the connection object. So if I say here cursor is equal to con.cursor method, now it will create a cursor with the help cursor. You can give any name here. This one I'm talking about. So once the cursor has been created, once the database has been established connectivity, the next thing is to create the table. If the table already exists, you don't need to write all this query here. You can just simply insert, or you can simply update, or you can simply delete whatever task that you want to do. So now here my table does not exist. So that's why here I have creating a table, that is with the help of cursor object and execute method of the cursor object. I am writing the query for creating a table, that is create table if not exist, with the name employees, having ID as integer, constant as primary key, comma, the name as text data type, and age as integer. So this will create a table with the name employees. The next thing, I want to insert the records. So with the help of the execute method on the cursor, I have written the insert queries into the employees database. As you can see here, insert into employees name, age, name, comma, age, values, question mark, Alice 30 for the first record. For second record, Bob and 25, and for third record, Bhagyashree, and save value as 28. So here I have successfully inserted the records into the database. So once the records are being added, if you want to make them permanent, then you have to call the commit method on the connection object. That is what I have done here, that is con.commit. So the records that I have inserted here, they will be permanently stored into the employees table. But once, until and unless you call the commit method on the connection object. So that's what I have done here. The next thing is that once you inserted the records, if you want to fetch records again, now here I need to write the SQL select query with the help of the execute method on the cursor object. So that's what I have done here. Cursor.execute select star from the table name. So this will fetch all the records into the cursor, and from the fetch all method on the cursor object, I am fetching all the records and putting it into the records variable. And with the help of the for loop, I am displaying the records one at a time. That's for record in records, print the ID, age, and the name. After that, I am closing the cursor connection, that is cursor.close and con.close. So this will close the cursor object and this will close the connection object. So here, for your sake, I am going to insert, I am going to execute this one more time. So as you can see here, I'm clicking on the run cell. So as you can see that now the records are added. So what I will do here, I will change the names. So instead of putting these 3 rows, what I will do, I will have only a single record, and in this I am going to change. So now here I'm going to write the new record as say Sachin Tendulkar and age as say 35. So now here, as you can see that there is no record with the name Sachin here. So now one more time I'm executing it here. Yeah. So now we can see that the record with the name Sachin Tendulkar is getting added into that. So this is how we can insert the records into the table. So here we are basically using the SQLite RDBMS. You can use any other database which is supported by Python. There are multiple RDBMS present. You can use any RDBMS, but for the sake of simplicity, I'm using here the SQLite. So guys, any queries regarding this RDBMS? So kindly and practically show how to import SQLite trees. See here, this is what, when you simply write this statement, it is already imported, guys. Okay, I will unmute you so that you can ask the queries. Yeah. Kindly and practically show how to import. So this is how, just you need to write import SQLite 3. That's it. The SQLite 3 will get imported. I think Juenoso, your query is cleared. Please respond.
Yes, it is clear.
Yeah. See that whatever library that you want to import, you just need to write the import keyword, give a space, and write the name of the library. That's it. For example, import pandas as PD, import numpy as np, import matplotlib as mlt, import seaborn as sns. Just you need to write the import command. That's it. All the classes, all the methods which are defined by Python in that particular library will get imported. Once it will get imported into your present Python code, you need to call the methods which are there in that specific library. But the thing is that you need to understand, you need to know which method is present in that particular library. Say, for example, here I have imported the SQLite 3. So in that SQLite 3, I have many methods, that is connect, I have cursor method, I have the execute method as well. So all these are being defined in this SQLite 3 library. So that is very important. Which library I need to import and which method I need to call. That we need to know. If you know these things, then successfully you can perform your task. That's it. So guys, any queries regarding this? If you have any queries regarding this, please go ahead and ask. Else I will move to the next concept in this session. Please respond in the chat box. Do you understood the RDBMS concepts? Do you understood how to create a database, how to connect to a database, how to insert the records into the database, and how to fetch the records from the tables? Okay. Now again I move to the PPT part. Please confirm in chat box that whether the PPT that I am referring here is visible to you or not. Yeah. So I guess it is visible. So the next concept in this session is UML. What is UML? UML is a unified modeling language. Basically, it's a unified modeling language. It is used for visually modeling the application that you want to design, the application that you want to build. So it's basically a modeling language, isn't it? We can design, say for example, before actually building uh, any building, what the architecture will do, the architecture will draw the diagram on the paper, isn't it? So the same thing in case of software development, that we are doing it with the help of these UML. There are various tools by which we can visualize, we can model our software, our application. One of them is UML. You can also use the flowchart. You can also use the data flow diagrams. You you can also use the decision trees. So there are different tools which can be used for modeling the software. But here we are talking about the UML, which is one of the modeling language that is called as Unified Modeling Language. The basic objective of this UML is to help the programmer, the system developer, for designing the system on paper. That's it. So there are different types of UML tools are available. So for example, class diagram, case diagram, sequence diagram. The use of these different UML tools are for different purpose that I will explain. But here we are understanding what is UML. UML is a visually modeling language. It's a tool basically to define how my different parts of my software application will interact with each other. So basically, it's a designing tool, but that designing tool is used to draw the diagram, the various components of your system. So it's a designing tool, basically. It is used for designing, specifying, and documenting the software systems. So that once the architecture designs the building on a paper, then the actual engineers or the builders will build the building by referring by referring the diagram, by referring the blueprint. So in the same way here, once the design is been done by using these UML, which is basically done on paper, of course. So what the system programmer will do, the system programmer or the programmer or the experts or the designers, what they will do, they will refer this diagram, that is UML diagram, and by going that diagram, they will design, they will actually write the code for that application. So I repeat that it is a designing tool which lets you design your system, specify your system, specify the various components of your system, and at the same time document the software system as well. Documentation is very important. See that in future, if somebody wants to make a change into the system, then you cannot blindly go to the system and make changes into that. You need to understand the overall architecture of the system. You need to understand the various components of the system, which components are engaged with other components, how the components are related with each other. If I make a small change in one module, in one function, whether it is going to impact other modules or functions or not. So for that purpose, we need to understand the complete system architecture. We need to understand each and every component of the system, and that can be done, that can be understood or understandable by using this UML design diagram. So it is used for designing, specifying, and documenting the system, which will provide a standard way to visualize and communicate the structure. Again, it is used to communicate the structure to the stakeholders, isn't it? The designer or the experts has to give a presentation to the stakeholders that how the system is going to be built, how the different elements, the components of this proposed software system is going to be designed, is going to be interact with each other, and what are the components in the proposed software system. So all those things can be presented visually by using UML. So this is also used, this diagram, this UML is also used to communicate the design, the structure to the stakeholders as well, its behavior, its interaction of the system, or it interaction of a software system with other system. So all these things are possible with the help of the UML diagram. Basically, I repeat, it's a designing tool which is used to design the system, specify the various components of the system, and to document the system, and to communicate the structure of the system, to communicate the behavior of the system, to explain the components of various types of system and what the interactions is. And again, this diagram will help the programmer as well to how to design a component and which component is related with which other component. So this will also help the programmer in actually coding the system, in actually developing the system. So UML diagrams are graphical representations of various aspects of system. So here we are graphically representing the various components, the various modules, the various elements of a system, and which will help the developers to better understand and design the complex systems in Python. Especially here we are doing Python, so we refer Python as here as well. So it's a graphical tool which helps you to define your components graphically, and which will also help the to understand and design the complex system as well. So coding before actually start writing the coding, one has to design the system, one has to graphically represent the system on paper, and that can be done with the help of the UML diagram. So in Python programming, we can use the UML to plan and document your software systems. So it is used to design, it is used to plan, it is used to document your proposed software projects as well. So this is the main objective or main purpose of UML diagrams. So like I said, that there are different types of UML diagrams that we can use as per the purpose, as per the application. We can select any of these UML diagrams. So for example, class diagram. A class diagram illustrates the structure and the relationship of classes in a system. So if in my system I am using the concept of a class, then I can use the class diagram in order to show the structure of a class and in order to show the relationship of the classes in the system, showcasing their attributes, showcasing their methods, showcasing their behavior, showcasing their association between them. I can use the sequence diagram to visualize the interactions and the order of messages between objects and components in a system. So in order to visualize, in order to represent, in order to show the interactions, how different components interact with each other, how this one object can send message to other objects, how different objects can communicate with each other. If I have to show that, if I have to represent that on a paper, I will use the sequence diagram. Then we have the activity diagram as well. So the activity diagram is used to represent the flow of activities within a system, how the data enters into the system and what processes are taken place on that data, and how that data is being stored into the system. So that can be defined, that can be represented with the help of activity diagram. Use case diagram provides a high level view of a system's functionality. So if you want to have the high level functionality of a system, that can be represented with the help of a use case diagram by depicting, by representing the actors, by using the use cases and their relationship, helping to understand system behavior from an external perspective. So these are the three main prominently used UML diagrams which can be used. So for example, as you can see on my screen is the example of class diagram. So guys, please confirm in the chat box that whether it is visible to you, the PPT, the class diagram for library management system. Can you see that? Please confirm in the chat
Yes, sir.
box. Yeah. So you can see that there are different classes. So for example, library management system. This is name of the system is library management system. And this is the main system. And from this system, you can see different classes. The first can be user class. second can be the account class, third can be the book, next can be the librarian, the next can be the library database. And now you can see that each one is a class. User is a class. What attribute the user is having? The user is having the attributes like the name and ID. And what are the behavior of that user? Behavior means methods which acts on that name and ID. So what are the methods of the user class? As you can see here, verify the user and again put underscore book underscore info or check discount. These are the methods which will actually act on the data of that user. In the same way, if you see the details of the library database class, then you can see the list of books here as an attribute. And what can be the methods of that library class? That is adding a book, deleting a book, updating the book, displaying the books, and searching the books. So if you want to, if you have in your, if you want to develop your application by using the concept of class, that is basically OOPS, then I can use the class diagram for library management system. Now again, you can see that how these classes are connected with each other. As you can see that 1 to 1, 1 to 1 to 1, 1 to 1, 1 to 1. So it means that these classes are connected with each other so that one object of this user can send the request to the library management system, or the library class is connected with the book class, and again it is connected to the account class as well, and again the account class is connected to the user. So overall, we can show with the help of a class diagram how different classes are interacting with each other and what are the behavior, what are the methods, what are the attributes of a class. That can be possible, that can be shown with the help of a class diagram, especially if I am using OOPS programming style for developing my application. So in that case, I will use the class diagram in order to depict the overall functionality or the various components of my application. So this is about class. The second one is about the sequence diagram. As you can see here, sequence diagram. So the sequence diagram, which is used to visualize the interactions and order of the message between objects or the components in a system over a time. So over a period of time, how the messages between the objects and components are going to be interacted. You can see that this is the vertical line represents the time, and you can see here how the different parts of the system are going to be communicated here. So this is an example of, I think, the ATM, how I am withdrawing the money from the ATM for a particular time period. So these are the activities, how these activities are going to be executed over a period of time, that can be graphically represented with the help of a sequence diagram. So this is about the sequence diagram. Now this is about the use case. So one more diagram I have got here. So this is, give me a minute.
So can I see the sequence diagram once again?
Okay, this is sequence diagram. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, sir.
Yeah. So you see that this is an ATM and this is a bank. So how they will interact with each other, that can be shown with the help of this sequence diagram, and this is vertical line represents the actual time. So this is how the money will be transferred between ATMs and banks. So now one example, that is activity diagram. So for example, I'm modeling a word processor, and the activity diagram example below describe the workflow. So if I have to describe the word processor, if I have to model a word processor with the help of the activity diagram. So how it can be? So it can be done with the help of, and what are the activities that I want to do here? I want to show creating a file, how to create a file, how to save the file, how to type the document. So all these things can be shown graphically with the help of the activity diagram. As you can see in this diagram, see how it can, how if I have to show that how, what are the flow of activities which can be done in a word processor for opening the file, for saving the file, for typing, and for giving a print command to the printer. So if I have to show the workflow from start to the end, if I have to type a document, if I have to save, if I have to print, then how it can be graphically represented with the help of an activity diagram. So this is an example of activity diagram which shows the steps of how to open the file, how to create a file, how to save the file, how to type the file, and how to give a command to the print, isn't it? So at the end, you can see that here, this is the exit office from the office. This is the starting point and this is the exit point. So basically, activity diagrams are used to show the flow of activity in your application. The same can be done with the help of a data flow diagram as well. So before I could end this session, I would like to give the feedback form for this session. So here I'm giving the feedback form for this session, and I request all the learners in this session to please give your feedback by filling this Google form. Please give me a moment. So we are running out of the time. So the rest of this session, I will go to cover in the next session, as it I have almost covered it. But still, if it anything remains in that, I will cover it into the next session. So here is the link. Please refer this, don't refer this one. So I hope this is visible to all of you guys. The link, is it visible? Please confirm the chat box. Is it visible? Yes.
Yeah,
So
sir.
with
It's
this, yeah, any questions, guys, regarding this session that I have conducted, or regarding the delivery, or regarding the concepts that I have explained today here? Basically, here we have understood about the RDBMS and we have understood about the UML. So here I have practically demonstrated about the how to create a database and how to insert the records into the database. So I hope you understood the concepts clearly. If you do have any questions regarding this session, please send your queries through the WhatsApp group, or you can directly mail to my official address, official email ID. So with this, I would like to conclude the session here. Due to time constraint, I have to close here. So thank you everyone for joining this session. Till we meet the next time, it's a very goodbye for now. Have a great day ahead.